In glorious sunshine, the teams are getting ready for qualifying here at Paul Ricard. This is the longest race that we have had within the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup this year, but in effect it's the longest sprint race as well, because last year's 6 hours here at the Circuit de Castellet was absolutely manic. It produced a great race and we're looking forward to more of the same. The weather at the start of the week was a little bit on the windy side, but now there is not a cloud in the sky. And it's a really intense day this for the teams. They've got qualifying now in conditions that may be nothing like what they're going to race in a little bit later on, because of course we start at 6 o'clock when the temperature is dropping, and not only does the temperature change, but so also will the light, because we're going to be racing into the dark. David Addison and John Watson trackside. The fast lane is open, and the teams now getting themselves ready for this first qualifying element, and the grid will start to be decided from here. And we've had some fascinating qualifying sessions already this season. There's another little quirk in all of this, in as much as number 88 Mercedes, the car just for the purposes of brevity is the Raffaele Marciello Mercedes, that yesterday rattled over the curve down at turn 1, did the sump and has needed an engine change. Now, because of the engine change, there will be a penalty, but the stewards have not yet determined what that penalty is going to be. So it could be a grid drop, it could be that it even goes to the very back of the grid. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what pans out post this session. But John, we're ready to go. It's another mega entry. Let's go racing.
What can I say? You've said it all. I mean, gorgeous day, great racetrack. If this race mirrors what we had 1 year ago, it'll be another 6-hour blinder. And in fact, blinding is one of the problems, because once you get into the nighttime hours, 10 o'clock-ish to midnight, the powerful headlights in these GT3 cars just absolutely just laser out the camera lenses. Nevertheless, it's the level of excitement that we enjoyed 1 year ago. And looking down, what a stellar grid we have here this weekend.
Now, inevitably, the team's doing this race as an element of testing for Spa. That's why the 6-hour race was put to this part of the calendar. If you think back a few years, it always used to be later in the season, but now we have it before the Spa 24 hours, so the teams can do some testing. Now, there's a car that's already got a penalty. Andrea Rizzoli, yesterday, for speeding in the pit lane and other things, was given more behavioural warning points. He's now got enough to generate a 5-place grid penalty. So the Monza winning team, maybe you could argue in 6 hours it doesn't really matter that much, but you don't want to go into the day on the back foot with a penalty, do you? Well,
again, referring back to what we had last year, because with such a compacted grid, if you lose position through, you know, maybe one might say an unnecessary penalty that you have earned, you are putting yourself on the back foot. As we look at the car that won the last round of the endurance version of this Blancpain Championship, and that is the 72 Ferrari Miguel Molina. For a long overdue victory, one might say, because this car has been competitive all season. And again, when you have a Ferrari winning, the only Ferrari winning significant motorsport events currently in 2019, you have to be very happy.
And there, Roberto Pampanini, who is one of the newcomers this weekend in this Scuderia Velova Corsa Mercedes, does that not draw attention to itself?
I mean, again, we've seen one of the Butson Junior Lamborghinis in that kind of gold wrap. Now we've got the Mercedes likewise with a gold wrap. One might say it's interesting. It's a different kind of color to that we are accustomed to, but anyway, it's their color, and it will stand out. It will certainly reflect the light off the sun and maybe the glare of the headlights later in the evening.
So the first part of qualifying is underway, and now we're going to get, of course, an idea of just how busy a circuit it is. If you are a student of Paul Ricard, you will know that, of course, the circuit, like many these days, has multiple configurations that enables the championships to use if they require one or two of the chicanes on the Mistral Straight. Many of the sport races this weekend will do just that, but for the purposes of the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup, it's the full Mistral Straight, no chicanes, no interruption, and therefore arriving at senior at the other end of that straight is going to take commitment.
Well, it's a proper test of a driver and the machine. I mean, the reason the chicane was put in the first place was, I think, probably for LMP1 cars, high performance prototypes, for example, coming down the Mulsanne Straight, there's a Freudian slip. The Mistral Straight speeds up to 200 miles an hour, and these GT3 cars will be just about clipping 180 miles an hour, but the corner at the end of the Mistral Straight Senior is a massive, massive corner. Just watching the Aston 76 going through. There we go through Senior. I mean, it looks all so easy. The reality is at night time, when there's a load of rubber on the outside edge of the corner, it is a much more demanding and difficult corner. And of course, reference points, because it gets dark at night time. I mean, that's an obvious thing to say, but unlike other circuits, 24-hour races, where there's quite a lot of illumination, it is quite dark out the back end of the circuit.
Now, where do we put our money for pole position here? If you go back to recent years in terms of winners, one interesting little quirk is that only one brand has won twice, and that's Bentley. It tends to stick in your mind that Bentley has good pace here, but also a lot of bad luck. But 2 wins to Bentley, 1 to Audi, 1 to BMW, and that's the old Z4 in the early days of what was then the Blancpain Endurance Series. Nissan has had a win, McLaren, and of course last year Lexus. So what are we expecting in terms of pole position?
Well, just talking about, there's one of the, not a particular car here, but certainly the Lamborghini has been very quick. The new FFF team, Andrea Caldarelli's car was quickest yesterday in that final practice session which we had in the sort of late afternoon. And that was a time 1 minute 53.093. That was set by Caldarelli, the 563 Lamborghini, followed by Lukas Stolz in the always very quick black Falcon Mercedes-Benz. It's going to be the usual suspects, other than if, for whatever reason, one of the 3 drivers in any of their stints finds themselves getting wrong-footed or getting caught in traffic, or there's a, as we had happen, a series of red flags where the situation, everything's stopped, and then you find yourself, I just think Silverstone in particular, a number of the top teams found themselves completely caught out in Q2, and consequently they were starting really at the back of the grid.
Now there's 76, the Aston Martin Alex Lynn, Marvin Kirchhofer and Jane Dennis. Alex Lynn coming into that car, replacing Nicky Thiem for this weekend. And again, you'll find teams cycling different drivers through as they get themselves into this preparation mode for the Total 24 Hours of Spa. Out of Senior goes number 2 Audi. That's the car that Dries van Thor, Ezequiel Perez Companc and Alex Riveras share. And Dries van Thor in this first session, he's driver 1.
Yeah, there's a number of driver changes, and they're not necessarily changes because the driver's not been doing a good job. I mean, in the 108 Bentley, for example, Callum McLeod's come in to replace Alex Buncombe. The purpose of this is that they're expecting a 4-car Bentley effort at this year's Spa 24 Hours. And as you mentioned, Alex Lynn is in this of the 76R Motorsport Aston Martin. Nicky Thiem temporarily stepping out of the car to make way for Alex Lynn to get some racing experience, particularly with those nighttime hours. Dries van Thor goes quickest of all on a 1:55.4. Significant time away from what we saw at that 1:53.0. That was the quickest time yesterday evening from Andrea Caldarelli in the Lamborghini.
So Dries van Thor, hard at work. The best time we've had thus far is from Manuel Lauck with his Ferrari, 1:55.380. That's one of the Rinaldi cars. But Manuel Lauck, I'm afraid, with all due deference, he's going to be
overwhelmed.
Indeed, yes, by the likes of Dries van Thor, Sven Muller, who are next, and that's Van Thor backing out of it.
Is that a problem for Dries van Thor, or is he just looking for a clear track? I think he's probably, as we just watch, swings across, takes the line. But you've got just bunches of cars. Of course, all this has a bearing on whether you're going to get a good lap or a lap that's compromised. And with the close proximity, as we see the 88 Mercedes, this is the car that rode the curb here, this part of the track last night, damaged an engine. As David was mentioning earlier in the broadcast, that had to be engine change. I mean, we know that Raffaele Marciello can go a bit AWOL when it comes to a race, but being as aggressive as that in what was effectively a free practice session, the penalty is yet to be determined, but nonetheless there will be some form of penalty for that ASP 88 Mercedes-Benz.
Dries van Thor has had a lap time cancelled for the dreaded track limit abuse. So,
good.
Here we go.
I'm glad they're on it.
Okay.
Glad they're on it. I'm sorry for Dries van Thor, but circuit like Paul Ricard, where you've got acres and acres of wide open spaces, you abuse them. Now, the most usual place for doing it is on the exit of scene. There used to be markers on the outside of the corner, but they didn't last terribly long. And there are other parts around the circuit as well, down rounds turns 3 and 4 particularly. So drivers been pinged already for track abuse limits. There you can see just running wide, and that's an example there of those markers just at the very end of the exit of scene, and then down into this long right-hand road Beausoleil.
So Raffaele Marciello is on it, but let's see ultimately where this is going to put him on the grid. Let's just suppose they started from the very back. How much of a downbeat team would that be, or over 6 hours could they make amends for that? It's not going to be easy.
Big day, difficult. I mean, you think that 6 hours is an awfully long time, but you've got to assume in that period you're going to make no mistakes. Pit stops are going to be fuel, tyre, driver change perfect, and you're going to have to rely maybe on a safety car intervention, full course yellow or whichever way around. It's not going to be something that you're going to make up sufficient ground. It would take maybe 2 driver stints to get you into the top 10, maybe top 15.
So at the moment, you've got Jordan Pepper, the fastest for Bentley, 153.668. There's 563, which is the Dennis Lind, Andrea Caldarelli, Marco Mappelli Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Dennis Lind at the wheel of it, and we've seen, should you need reminding, how good he is this year.
Well, that was the quickest car yesterday evening, and we could think back to Silverstone when those 2 Lamborghini team cars double stacked a pit stop, and one might argue it was the 519 that was the car that was driven by Phil Keane amongst others, that came second at Silverstone, that maybe had they not double stacked could have won the race at Silverstone.
So Dennis Lind weaving his way down through turns 3 and 4, the Virage d'Hôtel, down towards Virage du Camp, and then through that long right that takes you to Saint-Baume. Then there's a little flick towards the Mistral Straight, part of the circuit where track limits are policed, because there you can run out wide, as you see.
Again, they got small markers set into the curbing on the exit of the run down to the Mistral Straight. Straight line speed of the Lamborghini, well, it can do nothing, even though it's getting the draft of the car ahead. Now, the part where the draft will become more sufficient as you get further down the straight. But, I mean, it's almost equidistant from the minute they've come on. 280 kilometres, almost 180 miles an hour, then a brake and down a gear. Hard on it. And can you get past down the inside? It's going to be very tight. And that's the problem. You've got to force your way through. So Dennis Lind has the tighter line, gets the track position. This is, of course, irrelevant other than just to the lap that this 563 Lamborghini is currently on. Dennis Lind, who to us was a mega star in Monza and performed outstandingly again at Silverstone. Revised pit lane entrance here as well at Paul Ricard. For the first time, cars will come off the penultimate corner into the pit lane entrance, rather than going through the final corner onto start finish straight and then having to make a diagonal cut back from left to right. So the original pit entrance, as it would have been here on the right of picture, is redundant for this event and may well be redundant for any event in the future at Paul Ricard.
So still the times tumble. We've got 5 more minutes of this first element of qualifying to go, and Andrew Watson now goes to the top of the times. Now don't forget that we're going to get to a point of talking about not just the time but also the combined average to determine who's going to be where on the grid. So there's all the shuffling to go, but Andrew Watson is the quickest by 1,000th of a second from Maro Engel now.
And again, interestingly, the top 3 places, Aston Martin, Mercedes, Bentley, all mid-engine, front-engine GT3 cars. In fact, top 4, because Raffaele Marciello has now popped up into 4th place, the first of the mid-engine, rear-engine cars. Stan Schotter's 55 Audi, and that's the Silver Cup Audi, not even a Pro Cup Audi, or Pro Audi.
So there you've got the Bentley up towards Senior, that little climb up the hill, 271 just before turning into the corner.
Yeah, lowest speed is 212, so you're doing about 125, 30 miles an hour in Senior. And I mean, it is a mighty, mighty corner, and bear in mind, as much downforce as GT3 cars are generating these days, and these cars if you compare it to the bog standard road version that you would buy in your Bentley dealer or your Mercedes dealer, as Jordan Pepper gets a personal best, but he's backed out of it actually. Yeah. Interestingly, the levels of downforce are so high. But if you take an LMP1 prototype car or a Grand Prix car, we'll see they don't use the main straight, they use the chicane, which is a disappointment to me. I'd like the circuit to have the chicane there for school days only.
I think it might have been 108 Bentley that backed out of it, so Jordan Pepper's still on it as he comes up towards the timing line. That was a 1:53.572, third fastest they remain. You saw Stephen Kane a moment ago. He will go in the next part of qualifying, and we're just 3 minutes or so away from that next element.
Yeah, just looking down timing and scoring. My sleeper car for victory here tonight is actually the number 25 Audi, which is Simon Gachet and Christopher Hassem in that car. In fact, Nico Bastian has just popped up into 5th place in the Silvers. So Silver Cup cars 4th and 5th quickest. Amazing.
It is, isn't it, at the moment? So you've got Aston Martin, Mercedes, Bentley, Audi, Mercedes in the top 6. Where's the best Porsche? 8th, Klaus Bachler in the Dynamic Motorsport Cup. This is Miguel Molina's view, and he's way wide up the curve.
And this is down at Beau Soleil, I believe. Yeah, it is. So that's that long, never-ending right-hand corner, which follows the quick right-hand turn that's at Scene. Then you're making your way back towards the completion of a lap, looking to see where pit lane entrance is. It should be on the right-hand side somewhere. I think that's just around about there. It's hard to see from that onboard camera shot looking out. So the darkness in the cabin of the car, then the very bright light, and it is a very bright light here right now at Paul Ricard as we're coming up to 11:15 in the morning. Another absolutely stunning day. Fortunately, the wind that you experienced, David, earlier in the week has pretty much vanished. This morning, the Mediterranean was mirror-like, beautiful.
And so, Klaus Bachler to the top of the times in the Porsche, 1:53.241. So he's a 10th up on Raffaele Marciello, who has gone 2nd fastest. And where does our magic second take us to? The top 19 covered by a second at the moment. So nearly at the end of this first element of the qualifying session. Alex Lynn, number 76, 23rd fastest, coming up towards the timing line. Marvin Kirchhofer, who had to skip Silverstone, remember, due to being taken rather unwell on the race day morning. And Alex Lynn goes over the timing line, but not quite as quickly as he had been doing, getting not in the way of, but holding up slightly the Rover Racing Porsche behind him.
Well, 49 seconds of the session remaining, so they'll get to compete the slap. Still, the 54 Porsche, 1:53.241. Again, it's just less, just a fraction, a quarter of a second slower than the time that we saw from the 563 Lamborghini of Andrea Caldarelli, a time that was set sort of 5:30ish to 6 o'clock last night as the Bachler Porsche now creeps into the pit lane. And it's slightly disconcerting because all of a sudden we're seeing a view of the pit lane entry from that camera in what will be turn 14, looking at it. So cars up on axle stands.
So for most teams, they're bailing a lap early, aren't they? They're coming into the pit lane now to give themselves more time in the break to do driver changes, to change tyres if they need to. Another lap time cancelled for a car, namely that of Alex Lynn, for exceeding track limits, unfortunately.
Yes. So the quick turnaround, get it in, get the second driver behind the wheel, and then it starts to get a more complicated equation. But fortunately, we had a clean and uninterrupted Q1, which hopefully will be the case when we go through Q2. The issues that we had at Silverstone seem to be track temperature and ambient temperature related, and particularly up in that very quick part of the circuit up around Beckett's, catching drivers out in that transition from turning right to left. And it just really unsettled everybody in the pit lane, and some got caught by not being at the head of the queue when the track was being readied to once again go green.
So we have now just, 7 minutes or so before Q2 gets underway. And those drivers that are just taking the flag and doing another in-lap, of course, lose time relative to everybody else getting into this next session. Klaus Bachler then the fastest. 98 Porsche arrives. The Rover Racing team content with progress, I think it's fair to say. First year of running Porsches, but developing round by round, getting quicker and quicker all the time.
Yeah, eventually both the Rover Racing Porsches, the 99 is in 12th and the 98 is in 16th. Yet the 54, which is what I would call the showroom stock Porsche GT3R, is the quickest car. Probably the reason is car related, because they're virtually identical cars. But the lineup in the Rover Racing cars, you've got a mix and match of factory Porsche drivers, whereas the drivers in the 54, very fine drivers, as we saw at Monza, but they're not contracted or centrally contracted Porsche drivers.
And so, at the end of Q1, it is the car of Klaus Bachler that tops the times from Raffaele Marciello, and the margin between them 0.185 of a second. Andrew Watson doing a good job to be third in the car that was blitzed on the opening lap at Silverstone. Maro Engel fourth for Mercedes ahead of the Bentley of Jordan Pepper. Nico Bastian is sixth from Stein Scotthorst's Audi, the best of the Audis indeed. Eighth for Ferrari that won at Silverstone, Miguel Molina's car. Ninth Simon Gachet's Audi. Dennis Lind is 10th ahead of Jim Pla's Pro-Am Mercedes. Dirk Werner for Rover Racing ahead of Giovanni Venturini for FFF. Clement Schmidt's Audi comes 14th and Dries van Thor 15th fastest. Interesting that Dries put in to do Q1 rather than Q3 when you might have expected the car to be quicker and lighter. 16th is the second of the Rover Racing Porsches. Sven Muller doing driving duties with the two Frenchmen, Romain Dumas and Mathieu Géminet for company. James Poole for Barwell 17th from Charles Weert, Mathieu Vasilière and Callum McLeod in the second of the Bentley's number 108, taking the place of Alex Buncombe this weekend as part of his prep for the Spa 24 Hours. He's 20th from David Perel, Rolf in Icahn. So number 63, quite a long way down thus far. Alex Lynn ahead of Ivan Pereiras. Chris Buncombe 25th, having had what he described as the best Friday they've had this season. The car just running like clockwork in the free practice sessions of yesterday. And a look further down the order partly reveals what an enormous entry we have got. Lucas Maurer on 34th, just ahead of Taylor Proto, who's just joined the Lamborghini Young Driver Development Programme. Got Alexander West 38th fastest. Adrian Amstutz 40th for Barwell. And the Porsche of Benjamin Goethe 42nd ahead of Pierre Eret. Raymond Vos, who we got all excited about at Silverstone, winning Pro-Am. They were given a penalty post-race, him and Tom Onslow Cole, so they lost the win and are looking therefore to try and address that here. David Fuminelli replacing Jack Hawksworth at Straka, but only 49 we have in Q1. Now let's try and catch up with the thoughts of some of the drivers. Klaus Bachler is in the pit lane, so too is our reporter Dakota Jane.
Klaus, a super quick lap for you. It's a really tough qualifying here, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm mega happy, to be honest. It's really tough with 49 other cars on track to find a clear lap, to find a clear space. But our car was from the first out here very well. We are very confident and happy, and in the end I'm really happy about the team that we managed to put now in Q1 the car in front, but for sure it's two more other qualifyings, but it's just a good feeling already for everybody.
I'm sure. Let's hear you go in Q2. Thank you.
So Klaus Bachler having done a very good job. Monza winner, remember, but wherever they qualify, they're going to end up 5 places down on the grid.
Yes, it's a shame. All the good work that you've done, and you get the car. We don't know whether the car will actually, at the end of the next 2 qualifying sessions, retain that provisional pole position and then become confirmed pole sitter, but that 5-place drop. Okay, first down to 6th would be a big loss to the team, but starting on the 3rd row of the grid, in reality, would not be such a hindrance. It would be a different deal if you were only qualifying in the mid-30s and then having to take a further 5 grid place drop. That would then hurt you greatly, but we'll wait and see. What we're hoping for is that we've got another clean qualifying session. What we saw at Silverstone, going back and thinking about the Ledegar Aston Martin, the Garage 59 car that got hammered in that incident on the opening lap. A lot of cars, Taylor Proton likewise, pit lane exit out at Silverstone, coming out not being aware of traffic coming from his left, coming from left to right, and got side slammed, and he went off big time into the barrier on the right hand side of the track. A lot of cars heavily damaged in that event. Let's hope that we're going to have a race where there will be a lot less incident and certainly a lot less damage to the teams.
So they're looking down into the pit lane. You've got the 76 Aston Martin. Marvin Kirchhofer to go next in that car. And has he done some damage to the front? Yes, he has. Alex Lynn, the driver in Q1, goes out wide, and then does he clip the little markers? Yes, he does, getting back onto the circuit. So that's partly why he was done for track limits, but also why the car's got some damage at the front. Yeah,
I mean, he got all four wheels way over to the right-hand side of that demarcation, red and white curbing, and there are those, they're basically almost like motorway bollards. They're flat versions of a motorway bollard, but nevertheless, you hit them at 120 plus miles an hour, it will do a lot of damage to the leading edge of your aerodynamics, certainly in the case of the Aston Martin. That's going to have to be attended to as the car just waits for the pit lane to open. The Porsche, you see already down the pit lane, they're happy to get out there as quickly as possible. And there we go.
So everybody goes down the pit road now, ready for Q2. And it's going to be Zaid Ashkanani who is first out here. And as he blasts down towards turn one, that green Porsche eager for success this weekend.
I mean, they did such a good job on reflection at Monza in really difficult conditions. And one of the things that they managed to do was when everybody was running on wet weather tyres, when the track was in that kind of transition, but not really dry enough for slicks, he was able to baby those tyres, and that's fundamentally part of the reason that they won.
Angelique de Tavernier going down the pit lane. She was racing here last year, certainly the year before in Sports Club. There you've got the our Motorsport Aston ready to go. So a 1:53.241 is the best time. Now we get into this situation of not only needing a good time, but also you combine them and you get the average to determine the grid. So what we have in the session does not necessarily mirror the grid, but it's going to be interesting to see what pans out for sure. Well, Ferrars are ready to go. Sorry, John.
Yeah, no, it's literally you in the pro, or let's say in the category where you've got pro drivers only. They're not really called pro anymore. You're going to be looking to those teams to be the ones that are going to be best positioned to occupy the early rows of the grid, and there is the 54 Porsche, which ended up quickest in Q1. Zaid Ashkanani behind the wheel. So he wants to take opportunities and get out early, get a clear lap. He's coming up to the completion of his out lap. Depending on which set of tyres they've put on, whether they're all running a new set of tyres in qualifying, or whether they want to hold some of those new tyres back for different segments in this evening's 6-hour event. Be not quite sure, but accelerating hard out of the final turn up into the revised turn one. It's a much tighter left than right than in previous years. Last year, of course, this is the circuit we raced on. It used to be a really, really demanding and high-speed part of the racetrack, but it was decided that slow it down in the interests, I suppose one would say, of safety.
Well, so now we have the cars out on track, ready for this second part of qualifying. So different drivers, Zaid Ashkanani taking on Michael Meadows, Johnny Adam, Lucas Stoltz, Stephen Kane. They are the drivers of the cars within the top 5 after Q1, all of whom could well take pole position in their own right, because they're all quick drivers.
Indeed. Well, Ashkanani has got fastest first sector, understandably, because he's the first car on a flying lap through sector 1. So it may not be very long before that time could be eclipsed at 33.8 in sector 1 as the Porsche hammers down the long Mistral straight. Interesting to see who's, well, again, understandably fastest in sector 2 as well. Like to see the speed of the Porsche down the Mistral straight. They saw the Bentley clipping 280 kilometers per hour. I don't know whether the Porsche can match that speed. Bentley have traditionally been very, very strong. In fact, ought to, I suppose one would say, won the race last year to make it 3 victories. Unfortunately, a problem with the bonnet, and the very strong Lexus showing resulted in Lexus winning that event.
A great finish to what was a great race. Whoops, Zaid Ashkanani there almost being forced out overly wide and off the circuit by the slower car ahead on an out lap, whereas he's on a flying lap. Only 11 minutes, of course, to go. You don't get much track time here, so if you've got a problem, it's not the time to have it. One of the teams saying to me this morning that they've probably gone the wrong way on setup, but they just haven't got the time in qualifying to start fiddling with changes. They've now got to go with what they've got.
Yes, Ashkenani, he lost the opportunity of going fastest in all three sectors. No doubt coming up behind one of the cars with a 90 ACA ASP Mercedes. As we look at the 62 coming through, Matt Parry and a bobble there just on the exit. Again, you've got all those, you might call them paddle cones on the exit of a lump of the corners here this year. And you mentioned, David, also there's a revised curbing in turns 1 and 2, which is part of the reason why the 88 Mercedes-Benz Raffaele Marciello managed to damage the engine by being certainly, he maybe didn't walk the circuit, but he did find out when he drove it that there was a sausage curb which may not have been there last year.
We haven't seen much of the Honda yet. It's got Ryan Ratcliffe behind the wheel of it for the first time, new to the car, taking the seat of Struan Moore for this weekend. That's also been hit with a BOP disadvantage, so a bit less power and a bit more weight against the Honda. So Bob Neville's team trying to make the best of that for the time being. Matt Parry, in the meantime, in the Aston Martin in the background, makes the climb now from the end of the Mistral Straight up towards Signes, then on towards Toulon. Most of the corners here named after neighbouring towns.
Again, the snapping oversteer in the back. There's the Lexus. So a snap oversteer from Matt Parry, and that's twice in a lap. I've noticed that once in a slower turn 1 on the exit of 2, and then through Signes. So not a comfortable ride. Strange that normally the Aston is such a well-balanced mid-front engine GT car. To see that kind of sort of very snappy, for me, a very uncomfortable style of having to drive a car, but comes up very shortly to complete his first flying lap. And Stephen Kane has gone quickest in this session, 1:53.772. Matt Parry still quickest overall in Sector 1. Will he be able to beat that time?
It was Eric Cairol that you've seen facing the wrong way. Matt Parry goes second, 4th in the combined and 2nd in the session.
Yep.
So now you've got these two situations to look at. What's going on in Q2, but what's going on for the grid, and how did Eric Cairol get where he was? That's the answer. Oh no, it wasn't Eric Cairol, it was number 9 in fact, the Boussin-Gignon car, so
yes.
Orly Detavernier was having the spin, not the Lexus. So at the moment, on the grid, it is Jordan Pepper who is the fastest, with Stephen Kane having done his time in this session, Jules Gounon 3rd. That's on the average, but in the actual isolated session, Marvin Kirchhofer has gone to the top.
Yes, and 1:53.7. Very, very close. Top 4 cars covered by 43 hundredths of a second. So, I mean, literally, it is a suck of an intake of air. Phil Keane behind the wheel of the 519 Lamborghini. Strong run again at Silverstone. Phil saying very stum, and I did ask him about that double stacking pit stop. Didn't really want to commit himself to saying something which, you know, probably would have been discussed by the team after Silverstone. But Phil Keane, strong race at Silverstone, his home racetrack, looking to repeat that kind of performance here this weekend at Paul Ricard.
So, still pole position, Bentley number 107. Stephen Kane's 2nd fastest time, getting it up there. Where's the next improvement going to come from? Well, Phil Keane's currently 3rd. Matt Campbell's Porsche is 4th.
Lucas Stoltz, I was just going to say, look at number 4. Lucas Stoltz has gone in this session quickest overall, and is quickest overall in the 2, qualifying 1 in the middle part of Q2.
So on average, number 4 Mercedes is fastest. Andrea Caldarelli now goes 2nd on average, quickest in Q2. A 1:53.495. So what you've got on the timing screen at the moment is the average. So Zaid Ashkanani now goes on to the top of the times on average, on aggregate. So Ashkanani, Bakler, Rizzoli yet to come, ahead of Lucas Stoltz. So what you've got there, that graphic shows you the grid. We're looking at both that and also isolated Q2 times, in which Andrea Caldarelli is the quickest on a 1:53.495.
Quickest silver car is Denis Bulletov, gone 3rd quickest in this session on a 53.6, and they are 3rd quickest silver car combined, down in 12th. In fact, they've dropped to 14th in the time it took me to say it.
1:53.512 is the best time on average. You've got the gaps there between everybody, but not a reference time on that graphic. So 1:53.512, currently the best average time, and we've got 6 more minutes of the session to go. You see the chicanes there, left and right, and the cars pound through irrespective.
I would put a big no entry sign up just to make the point that, you know, this is, can't say it's an old school racetrack, because it was the most advanced racetrack in the world when it opened for business, and that 90 Mercedes will certainly get the attention, that wide off racetrack. But when this track was introduced in 1970, it was the state-of-the-art leading racetrack in the world. It's now 49 years old. Can't believe it.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's beautifully kept. I know it had its period of only being a test track, but it's always been well maintained. It looks immaculate. And of course, it's been modernised again with where we are on top of a brand new complex for the media centre built in for the Grand Prix last year. Now, Romain Dumas is hard at work here, hustling up towards the end of the lap. He's got stuck in traffic though, and he's down in sector 1 and down in sector 2, so it's not looking great this lap.
No, and he's caught behind the 90 Mercedes, which we know is a car. We've seen it at the front row of a grid at Monza. We've seen it strong basically everywhere it's run. So Dumas is caught behind a potentially very strong, and who's in behind the wheel of the 90 at the minute? Caldarelli second in this session, Lucas Stoltz third, Campbell fourth. So it is Bogolovsky in the 90 Mercedes.
Yes, Timo Bogolovsky, who was the one up the curb. Number 90 on aggregate, he's 8th fastest. Alex McDowell there for WRT. Speed building to 64, 5, 6, 7. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, up to 275 more. Yes, can we get to 280? Just about, oh, so briefly.
Look at the speed in the corner, 208. So that's slower on the corner marginally than we were watching from the 107 Bentley in the Q1, nevertheless. And just looking down timing and scoring in this session, we're now midway through it, nearly half of 3/4 away through it. All we're getting are personal bests. Matt Campbell actually is just saying that, has had fastest purple sector, sector 3, quickest overall in this session, fractionally quicker, 153.377.
We've had a lap time cancelled for Stefano Gattuso for track limits. We've had a lap time cancelled for number 55 Audi of Peter Schotthorst for track limits. We've had a lap time cancelled for Kim Louis Schramm for, you guessed.
Well, we're not seeing all these track limit abuses, but certainly we're seeing a few that are on camera. So Porsche, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, 63 popping up for the first time, ahead of the 563 Lamborghini of Andrea Caldarelli. And it's Andrea Caldarelli who actually pops up quickest overall now by, what, 43 hundredths of a second from the 99 Porsche in this session. Overall, it's still the 54. That's quickest of all.
188 Chris Harris, broadcaster, going up now through the long, fast right of Toulon that tightens, and then you will swing left through Bendor down towards the Courbe de Gararon, up towards the completion of the lap, and at Gararon he will start to approach the Virage du Lac. So there is Chris Harris. From Bendor, the road opens up a little bit, now through Garaban and then towards Virage du Lac. That's out of the last corner, the Virage du Port, turn 15 if you prefer, over the timing line. And lots of traffic pouring over the line with 2 minutes to change on the clock now.
Yes, all these cars running nose to tail. Looks lovely on picture, but it's not going to do a massive amount for a potential single quick lap. Too much compromise, and especially coming into turn 1 and 2, there's not much you can do. It's just follow my leader all the way down through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 until you get onto the Mistral straight, and even then, where you hope you might be able to pick up the slipstream and maybe make a maneuver before you get to scene. And if you can't do it there, then you're really snookered, because there's not many other parts of the racetrack before the completion of another lap that you'll have a chance to get past.
So with one more lap for most of them still to be squeezed into this. There's a yellow flag period that's being investigated to see whether people, when Angelique Defavenier was having her spin, were going faster or not. So that's how it's being looked at by the officials. And there, everybody coming into the pit lane, and that shows you how crowded it is there too.
Yeah, it is, but it's also, we've got to get used to seeing this new pit lane entrance, because all of a sudden you're seeing cars coming slowly through turns 13 before they get to 14, and you think, oh, is there a problem? But actually the problem is There is the revised at the top of your picture, just to the right of the screen, is the new pit lane entry, which in theory should make it a much safer entry for everybody, but it could end up with compromises because as cars are coming around the exit of 13, they want to get across to the right-hand side of the track to cut back for the penultimate, the left-hand corner before you come onto pit straight.
So the clock counts down and 40 seconds remain, that's all of this session.
Well, last roll of the dice for number 4, Lukas Stolz. And he has got a relatively, I think he's got a clear track, not even relatively clear track. But whether or not so he got a personal best in Sector 1, not looking sterling in Sector 2, down by probably about a tenth or so in a bit. But it could see a small move up in this session from 6th place, and that would maybe consolidate their current 3rd overall.
So right now, Porsche 54 is on the notional pole position, but with a 5-place grid drop. Flag is out. What can Lukas Stolz do to fight back? Up in Sector 1, down in Sector 2. So Lukas Stolz heads up towards the timing line. There is the checkered flag being waved over the brow on the pit straight. Stolz goes 2nd on aggregate and up to 4th in the session.
Yeah, now that was worth staying out because he got the clear lap and he was able to make best use of it, even though that middle sector didn't actually help him a great deal. The final sector did, because fastest overall for Lukas Stolz, number 4 Black Falcon Mercedes. As we go back to Ferrari to see whether they can conclude a clean run. Looking down to see where the 72 Ferrari is. Michael Aschelin in 21st place in this session. But where are they overall?
Only 18th. It's not great, is
no,
it?
it's not. It's not the normal performance level. It runs very, very wide on the entry down into Beausoleil.
Is this a circuit that's about aero, or is it about power?
Well, it's certainly, if you've got the aero, you'll get down the straight line of the Mistral Straight. Power is probably across the range of everybody, more or less. That's part of the balance of performance. So you have roughly more or less the same power. It'll be then more the aero efficiency, and particularly in the higher speed ranges. But look at the Bentley. I mean, you wouldn't have thought that, because it's a physically large car, it's still getting down the straight. So its balance of performance is giving it an equal sort of straight line speed to something that's much smaller and maybe slightly more aerodynamic. Maybe not.
Well, the flag out, so we've only got 15 more minutes to go of qualifying, and that means Q3 getting underway shortly. It's been a very calm session, he says, tempting fate, because apart from one spin, and yes, okay, the inevitable track limits, we've not had too much drama, which is exactly what the teams want, given that they've got 6 hours of racing at the end of today.
Partly because we've got a higher ambient temperature than we had at Silverstone. We've got a higher track temperature than we had at Silverstone. And this is not as demanding a circuit as Silverstone. And that was, I'm using Silverstone as the benchmark for one of the most disrupted qualifying sessions that we've seen in a long time.
So far on the average of qualifying, we're looking at Zaid Ashkanani's recent time, putting the number 54 Dynamic Motorsport Porsche to the top. Lukas Stolz 2nd with Mario Engel and Jelmer Berman, and Johnny Adam is currently 3rd in the Aston Martin. 4th, Andrea Caldarelli's Lamborghini. Up to 5th quickest now is the Michael Meadows Mercedes, with this draconian penalty, this Damocletian penalty hovering over it after an engine change overnight. 6th, Matt Campbell from Stephen Kane, and then Peter Schotthorst. 9th quickest, Timo Bogoslavski. And the top 10 being rounded out now by Norman Nato, who is new into the WRT Audi. Phil Keane 11th currently, ahead of Matt Parry, the 2 British drivers then from Marvin Kirchhofer. 14th is where you find Christian Engelhardt, that car getting into the mix, and Romain Dumas' Porsche 15th fastest. Remember, we've got the best part of 50 cars in this race, so 16th at the moment is the Audi of Ezequiel Perez Compact. That car's not really shone yet. Denis Bulatov is 17th ahead of Mikhail Alyoshin, and then Stephen Palette. Andy Soucek is 20th, Nick Foster 21st from Jordan Witt, Alex McDowell 23rd, Kim Louis Schramm comes next from Patrick Assenheimer, then Ahmad Al-Hafi, who's been on the podium with Salah Jolic and Charlie Eastwood in all of the previous races. Jonathan Hui is 27th, Gerhard Tveraz, Niki Pola and Diego Menchaca round out the top 30 that we have had thus far. Then for Ram Racing, Darren Burke, former historic Formula Ford racer. Stefano Gattuso is 32nd from Mauro Ricci. 34th, Chris Harris. And then the Honda, a long way down, Ryan Ratcliffe, but he's new to that car, still learning about it. Antonio Forne Tomas is next from Jordan Grogor. 38th quickest is Christian Hook, ahead of Louis Machiels. 40th, Leo Machitsky in the AM Lamborghini from Rob Smith's Pro-Am Bentley. Florian Scholz is an AM, he's 42nd from Martin Berry, Pierre Pack and Eric Cairol in the Lexus, 45th fastest. Then you've got 46th fastest, the Mercedes that comes out of Scuderia Villorba Corsa, and that means that Stefano Monaco is ahead of Claude-Yves Gosselin, Angelique de Tavernier, and Dev Gore slowest. All is not well at Straka. Now let's hear from the man quickest in Q2, Andrea Caldarelli is with Dakota.
Andrea, you showed your potential yesterday to be fastest, and today again. Now you're about a 1/10 of a second in split time to make up in Q3, so it's going to be really critical down to your engineer and your driver. Feeling confident?
Yeah, confident. I think it's really a matter of traffic and find the space. Yesterday we were very competitive, and I think we show it again today. But I think it's going to be really tough, really close. But Marco is in the car now. I'm sure he's going to do a great job.
Who are you watching out for?
I guess Mercedes, yeah, number 4 probably. And I saw the Porsche were very quick. So I think there are a few people out there that can do a very good job.
Good luck to Marco for Q3.
So Andrea Caldarelli's car currently 4th fastest on the aggregate. So Marco Mappelli does need to find time, and he needs to find effectively 0.123 of a second to go to the very top.
Well, it is a very close grid. I mean, so at the end of the first session, there was literally thousands of seconds between, and just looking down to see where we are. But you've got to get down to 24th place, a second covering the top 24 cars. I mean, do you want to be in the top 24 or the bottom 24? The bottom 24 is probably going to be a more comfortable place. If you want a nice Saturday evening drive, if you want to go racing, you've got to be in the top 24.
But you're also going to get through turn 1 safely, and if you are in that top 24, you'd rather be at the front of it than the back, because you don't want all the traffic around you.
Frankly, if you're not in the front 2 or 3 rows of the grid, you're better starting in the pit lane and let it all happen ahead of you, and then just thread your way through, because that middle part of the grid, sort of 5th row back, is going to be a congestion. And into turn 1, hopefully everybody will get through cleanly and clearly. We've seen people having to cut through the inside of the corner just simply to avoid a collision, and then if they make up positions, then they've got to let those positions retake those. So it's, everybody needs to stay calm. I'm not going to say stay cool, stay calm. We always say it, and it never actually is delivered.
But this is the longest sprint race of all, isn't it? Absolutely frantic, 6 hours, and it's a very long day for the teams. It's hard work, especially in the heat in the first round of pit stops. And Vincent Abril ready to go. French driver Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows have both done their driving duties, and this car currently is 5th on the grid.
Car that you would automatically put into your top 6. The quality of drivers, the quality of the car itself, the team. But wherever you look, there's 63. That car, potential winner at Silverstone, got a tire cut down towards the end. How many stories, if and or buts, have we had so far this year?
I was just thinking about that in the context of the 88 Mercedes. It's not had the year you might have expected of it.
No, it's not. I mean, again, you'd have to put that car always as a potential race winner, be it a sprint or be it an endurance event.
So everybody now starts to get themselves ready for the start of Q3. For some, they'll throw a new set of Pirelli rubber at this. Others will try and save rubber for the race itself. The green light is on at the end of the pit lane, so we're live. The 3rd part of qualifying is now underway.
2 gold cars out first. Is that just a coincidence, or?
Let's see. Everybody out on track. So Klaus Bachler, Zaid Ashkanani's Porsche currently the fastest, 32 thousandths the margin on the aggregate. And some, if you're not out at the start of this session, you might as well wait and try and buy yourself some clear track space.
Yeah, teams maybe feeling this is going to be a one-lap wonder for the 3rd driver. rather than pounding around and around and around and using up rubber, if you are confident in your third driver, in the case of the 54 Porsche, it's Rizzoli, the number 4 Mercedes, Jelmer Berman, Aston Martin, Côme Ledegaard, Lamborghini, Marco Mappelli, Mercedes, Vincent Abril, Dennis Olsen in the Porsche, Jules Gugnon in the Bentley, and then Drudy in the Audi. So people dribbling out sort of slightly piecemeal rather than the charge that we saw at the beginning of Q1.
Phil Keane has had a lap time taken off him in Q2 for overtaking under. I'll try this again. He has had a lap time taken off him in Q2 for an improvement under a yellow flag. That's what I was trying to say. And so the time of Phil Keane taken away for a yellow flag infringement. And there you've got the Lexus of Fabien Barthez. Don't expect the result from that car that we had last year. Different team, and it's an AMCAP car, but with Eric Queiroz, very experienced French driver behind the wheel. It should be competitive within its category this weekend. They're good to go. It's 87 Mercedes. That is the Jim Plough, Mauro Ricci, Jean-Luc Bobelic car.
They're kind of covering their bases, aren't they?
Yeah.
Back at ASP, they've got a Pro-Am car, they've got a Pro car, and they've got a Silver car. The only thing they're lacking is an AM car.
If the customer base is there, go for it. Absolutely.
I'm sure there is.
So everybody on track just about. And as John makes the point, whether they're going to go for 15 minutes of action or just one shot, one lap, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, the choices will be if you've got the tyre under you and whether you can turn if it's a new tyre, turn it on your first flying lap. It's a relatively long lap around here. You can generate pretty good tyre temperature. So everybody just really is jockeying to get track position. There's the Porsche 54 car that is currently quickest overall, and it is now Andrea Rizzoli behind the wheel.
So he is the one that's incurred this penalty, just to make the point again, because of speeding in the pit lane and other assorted indiscretions. He's now got 3 behavioural warning points, BWPs as they are known, and if you get to 3 you then get a penalty accordingly. That's a grid drop. Marco Mappelli trying to find himself some clear track space here in the Orange 1 FFF Racing Team Lamborghini, not yet up to a proper pace, and therefore holding up others behind him because some of the traffic reluctant to go storming past.
So Mappelli has got the Bentley ahead of him, so it shouldn't really interfere very much with his attempt. Currently 4th overall after sectors 1 and 2.
This is Mappelli's view, comes over the timing line, down towards turn 1 then, so a break, turns into the left, into the right, and then the short run down towards the Virage d'Hôtel. So down towards the bottom point of the lap, he will brake hard in a minute for Virage d'Hôtel. Turn himself into the right, into the left. That takes you to turn 5 and the Virage du Camp. We're riding with Marco Mappelli. Back here at Paul Ricard, Marco Mappelli has just done the absolute best in the first sector.
Yes, strong run for the Lamborghini, and this particular car of the 3 lined up that 563 Marco Mappelli onto the quickest part of the racetrack, followed by the 348 and the 333 Ferrari. So what's the top speed? Can we get a view of the top speed of the Lamborghini? It should be in the region of 278 to 280, maybe 1 or 2 kilometers per hour. Listen. Pretty much committed as anybody else has been. I mean, it's not a flat-out corner, just don't have the downforce to do that. But if you can just carry the speed through by feathering the throttle, maybe just a quick change down 1 gear, but not really using the brakes to shift the speed of the car. And this long left-hand corner, always difficult to find. Where's their apex? You want to make it later as possible to straighten the exit. Then you're coming up to what was now the revised pit lane entry. It's off to your right-hand side now. And then into this final corner, always a corner that frustrates. You never get the nose in, you can never get the traction off it. So what can Mappelli do? It comes across start finish line as the 98 Porsche has gone quickest in this session so far, and can that be eclipsed by the Lamborghini? It has.
Whoa.
Significantly too.
By 0.2 of a second, and that puts Mappelli, Lind and Caldarelli on pole position by 0.183 of a second with 9.5 minutes to go. So it's Lamborghini, Porsche. You've got the Dynamic and 98 Rover cars, 2nd and 3rd, 4th quickest now It changes again, indeed. Aston Martin up to second, courtesy of Maxime Martin. And 519 Lamborghini from Pereira up to fourth fastest. So change and change about. What can Ledegaard do here in the Aston Martin? This is the Garage 59 Aston. Rebuilt after Silverstone.
Bentley quickest now overall on combined times. Jules Gounon 152.8. That is the quickest lap of the weekend of any of the running that we've had. Best in first and third sector, fastest overall sector 2. Again, indicating the Bentley. We saw good straight line speed from the 107 earlier in the session.
Ledegaard hustling on then, 2 personal best, but wide at senior.
Yes, the 54 Porsche running directly behind. Doesn't want to get too close. Fastest silver car, Felipe Fraga in the 90 ASP Mercedes, 4th quickest on the 153.3. You know, the balanced silver cup cars with the pro and the silver drivers getting mixes and matches. So Hjalmar Berman in the number 4 up second quickest overall in this final qualifying segment. Quickest overall combined with what, 8 minutes remaining.
59 then, Ledegaard up towards the end of the lap. Let's see what he can do here then. So this is a car that needs to find a big chunk of time from somewhere to catapult itself back into the mix. Ledegaard 13th in the session. So Ledegaard goes through and improving all the time. Now to the top goes Hjalmar Berman. Hjalmar Berman, on average, has just done the best time. So now 153.391 for him, Engel and Stoltz. Jules Gounon, however, fastest in Q3, and he's on another mission because he's done an absolute best in the first sector, but now he's got stuck in traffic, John.
Yes, he has, and that's reflected in his middle sector time. It's still a strong time, but what, a 1/10 of a second away from what would be the fastest sector time overall. Still in with a shot, just comes across start-finish line. That lap, 152.671, quickest single lap overall, provisionally quickest overall as well.
Absolutely, quickest on average then. He's 107 Bentley.
The Bentley, there's a big Bentley weekend here.
Yeah.
Parade of Bentleys, and it's not necessarily going to be your Bentley Continental GT 3Rs.
The car always has gone well around here. It's had some bad luck as a brand as well as good luck, but Bentley and Paul Ricard always seems to click nicely. From Pereira up to second in the session, and that puts him where? 5th, 6th, in fact, on average.
Yeah, and another strong performance. 97, Oman Racing, Aston Martin, Charlie Eastwood in this session, 4th quickest.
Good effort, isn't it, that, by Charlie Eastwood? So 97, 4th in the session, but 23rd on average.
In fact, Charlie Eastwood's now got 3rd quickest in this session, so he's improved yet again.
Getting better and better and better. What about Hjalmar Berman's efforts? Because he currently is 2nd in the session, 2nd on average.
Now there's a story here. Jules Gounon is over half a second quicker than Hjalmar Berman in this session. Got to be a tire story or something. If Bentley have got half a second advantage on a single flying lap, that is an enormous amount of gap between the number 107 Bentley and the rest of the field.
So through goes Berman, avoids the chicanes, of course, on the Mistral straight, but he's down in the first sector, whereas Jules Gounon has just done an absolute best in the middle, down in sector 1, but an absolute best in the middle. So Gounon is still pressing on.
But he's lost, well, 3/4 of a second in sector 1, as the number 4 Mercedes runs wide, coming out, but just about probably within acceptable limits. Traffic ahead stays tight on the inside of Beausoleil, and then again he's going to be concerned with traffic. He's got the Ferrari directly ahead. One of the problems of qualifying is just choosing your minute, your second almost, to get out and maximising the entirety of the circuit. You can maybe get fastest sectors or good sector times again. Look at Berman having to thread his way through as he comes into this final 2-corner onto start-finish straight. Fortunately, this particular lap for Hjalmar Berman will not reflect any further improvement. The car currently 4th overall, and in this session 6th quickest.
Now we understand, breaking news, that 88 has been confirmed as a pit lane starter. That is the penalty for the engine change. So number 88 Mercedes, we've been talking about it, it's 10th on average, but it will start from the pit lane.
I mean, it's a real can't really say what I want to say. Disappointment.
Yes.
Disappointment. Because that car clearly was a race-winning car. Starting from the pit lane, well, I've said I'd rather start from the pit lane in some respects than start maybe somewhere in the middle of the grid. At least when you start in the pit lane, everything's ahead of you. You can start to work your way through the field. It'll be a long evening, nighttime race for that car. And as long as all three drivers drive cleanly and don't try, well, they can't win the race in the opening lap in the first corner. That's one advantage that they have from starting in the pit lane.
So keep out of trouble, and the race might come to them. They've just lost a lap time as well for track limits. Now, how's the Ferrari 72 getting on? It's 9th in the session, Davide Rigon, and 16th on average.
Another strong performance, Tom. Onslow Cole in the 74 Mercedes-Benz. So that's Ram Racing, and hopefully maybe a little bit better outcome than he maybe would have enjoyed at Silverstone.
Indeed, a win on the road and then a time penalty. The drive-through given as a post-race 30-second penalty for contact, costing them the win. Davide Rigon is pressing on, but down in Sector 1. Jules Gounon is in the pit lane, also Maxime Martin is in the pit lane now, so the best place of those on track, Mathieu Jaminet, who is 3rd in the session, up to 10th on aggregate now.
Yeah, Maxime Martin, that second quickest time in this session, has consolidated their current provisional second row grid start position. Nice position to be in, alongside 99 Porsche, and there it is. Comte-Ledegar getting a little bit wide on the exit of Beausoleil.
A little bit wide, a little bit sideways as well as he lost traction. So Comte-Ledegar hustling on, but 8th on aggregate at the moment. The session's not quite gelled yet for Garage 59. Factory driver Johnny Adam part of the squad. Comte-Ledegar, of course, won this endurance title with Garage 59 when it was a McLaren team a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. Up towards the timing line he now comes. Ooh, that's sideways, isn't it, as well? The Acker Mercedes.
Yeah, that was getting the back end over the curb and then flicked just at the very end of the corner. So not much change coming. Jaminet in the 98 Porsche. Rover Racing, he's come up to personal best. Sector 1, Sector 3, 3rd quickest in this stint. And the 98 is 10th overall. The sister car, 5th place. 99 in 5th place. 2 Porsches in the top 6. That was not top 7, revised that.
Now Marvin Kirchhofer is pressing on. Kirchhofer 13th in the session. And the car... Oh, it says Marvin Kirchhofer. It should be Jake Dennis, shouldn't it, in fact now? Because Jake Dennis is due in for Q3. So Jake Dennis, not Marvin Kirchhofer. Ignore the graphic. They've got the transponder in the wrong place.
Stay calm, everybody.
Go on.
Stay calm. 98 Porsche. Mathieu Jaminet, fastest overall in a Porsche in Sector 1. Wait to see what happens in Sector 2. Can he consolidate it? That's the sector which is really principally dominated by the Mistral Straight. So showing no improvements. Good run, but no improvement. There's the 98 Porsche. Can they put themselves onto the front row of the grid? Currently that car is 5th row of the grid, so that can be traffic's ahead of the Porsche, but hopefully not going to come into play unless, I think that was the 72 Ferrari, unless they're planning to make a late entry into the pit lane. So Jaminet needs to make a little bit further progress to get that Porsche from the 5th row of the grid on board. So the last corner, there's the Ferrari directly ahead. So the run to the flag, or the one, well, not the flag yet, and one more lap for everybody.
So that puts Jaminet 10th.
Stays there, doesn't improve. The last 2 sectors lost time.
And losing out in the session as well, because Mirko Bortolotti has just gone 3rd in Q3, 9th on aggregate. And confirmation that 76 was Jake Dennis we were just looking at. So Jules Gounon is the fastest in the session, and 107 Bentley will start from provisional pole position. The flag is out. 54 Porsche, incidentally, 7th on average, plus its 5th place grid drop.
No, that's a good run. I mean, that is a private entry, and I think they're doing an outstanding job. Yeah, another outstanding job. Just looking down through the field. Well, there's so many. You look down Charlie Eastwood, Dennis Olsen, Felipe Fraga, Brokers, Yalma Berman in this session only 10th quickest in the number 4. Then the number 4 is currently on the provisional front row of the grid alongside the 107 Aston Martin.
Now, Mathieu Jaminet is still pressing on, but he's down in the first sector, isn't he? So he might improve, but it's not going to necessarily mean an improvement for him this lap. He's down in sector 2 as well now.
No, as far I think the reality was, if he wasn't going to get it done on the previous lap when he had fastest overall sector 1, then it would be very difficult to see him making any further improvement on this lap if he didn't get at least 1 or more purples in any of the 3 sectors. So the Ferrari directly ahead may or may not have a bearing on what Jaminet was able to do in the 98 Porsche. You're running close behind a car. Not only does it distract you, but there's a small amount of effect wash, as it were, the aerodynamic wash coming off the rear of the Ferrari. So Jaminet comes across the line, take the checkered flag, and he'll end up 4th quickest in this session, but starting down on the 6th row of the grid rather than the 5th.
So an interesting front of the grid: Bentley, Mercedes, Audi, Lamborghini, Porsche, Aston Martin. That's what GT3 is all about, all those different brands, and those 6 covered by 0.139 of a second. You're looking at margins of thousandths here, and in fact, on the average, the Schotthaus brothers with Mattia Drudi and also the Dennis Lind, Caldarelli, Marco Mappelli, Lamborghini equal on time. So to the thousandth they tie, but the Bentley squad delighted there.
So they should be, and they've done a strong job. Almost, they did a job that was, at one point, they were half a second ahead. Fortunately, the number 4 Mercedes pegged them in, but it was Maxime Martin, actually, in the 62 Aston Martin, who got within 34 thousandths of a second. So there are the happy boys. Jules Gounon, did you show your hand too soon? But in fact, the Aston Martin time getting virtually on par with the 107 Bentley. So,
I mean, in the session, it was only 34 thousandths between Gounon and Martin. On average, it was only 53 thousandths. So it's going to be very close indeed.
Guys, a massive congratulations starting on pole. Jules, you were absolutely flying out there on track. Q2, very impressive time.
Q2 was Steven, so you should say...
Sector 2.
Yeah, Sector 2, I had a good slipstream. You know, you have those days where everything goes together, and it's not often. Since 1 year and now since Le Castel last year, we had a lot of bad luck. And honestly, it feels amazing. Jordan did an amazing job at Q1. Steven with traffic on Q2 was amazing also. And I just had to try to finish the job. But the Bentley is amazing right here. We have seen this over the past years. But it feels really good to be on pole. Honestly, it's...
Steven, when was the last time you were on pole?
For quite a long time, actually. This is the first pole for Bentley M Sport, and so it's a proud moment for all the team, and especially us 3 drivers. Jules and Jordan did a mega job, and you know, we're working well as a team to get all the collective 3 times together. So now we're on pole, and we'll see what the race is later.
Let's see what the race is later. Jordan, back to you. It's going to be a long race, isn't it? 6 hours of Paul Ricard in that heat. Are you going to be able to handle it?
Yeah, I think taking the start from the front row is a lot easier than last year from 18th, so looking forward to it. But we saw last year it's not over till the last lap. Unfortunately, we got robbed from the win last year, but together a year into the road, being together and as a team, and I think we can do it this year.
Celebrate for now, but crack down for later. Thank you, boys.
So a very happy Bentley team. I hadn't really registered that was the first M Sport Bentley pole. We talk about race wins, but an excellent achievement then to get pole position.
I'm surprised. I would have thought that there had been Bentley poles in the past, but clearly the 107 team, maybe there was for the 108, but not maybe for the 107.
So Jordan Pepper, Stephen Kane and Jules Gounon will provisionally start from pole position ahead of Maro Engel, Lukas Stoltz and Jelmer Berman, with Stein and Peter Schotthaus with Mattia Drudi third. Dennis Lind, Andrea Caldarelli and Marco Mappelli fourth, from Dirk Werner, Matt Campbell and Dennis Olsen. Mathieu Vazivière, Matt Parry and Maxime Martin starting sixth. Maxime Martin just having gone second in Q2. Then it is Porsche, Aston Martin, Lamborghini and Mercedes to round out the top 10. Porsche from Audi, Mercedes, Aston Martin and Lamborghini rounding out the top 15 on the grid here. The S&P Racing Silverstone winning Ferrari finding itself a long way back on the grid, 16th, but again, in theory, progress can be made from there, with the likes of James Poole, Jordan Witt, Sandy Mitchell amongst those to watch in the Silver Cup. So too David Perel, Denis Bulatov and Renat Salikov. That's a Ferrari that starts 22nd on the grid. And if you scroll further down, you get to the Grasser Racing Team second string Lamborghini of Lucas Maurer, Gerhard Tveraz, Arno Santamato 26th, Raymond Vostar and Bert Tom Onslow Cole 27th, another of those in Pro-Am. Also Pro-Am, Chris Buncombe, Jonathan Hui, Chris Froggatt 29th, former touring car racer Chris RICARD 30th, the AF Corsa number 52 Pro-Am entry of Macchiels, Hommerson and Bertolini 31st on the grid. Dean Stoneman's efforts putting the Lamborghini 32nd ahead of Michele Beretta. Stuart Hall in the Porsche 34th, Chris Goodwin 35th. The Honda 36th ahead of Seb Morris's efforts in the Bentley. He's the quicker of the three drivers in that car. In AM, remember, Chris Goodwin, Chris Harris, Alexander West ahead therefore of Miguel Ramos, Leo Machitsky and Adrian Amstrup. The third AM car, Stefano Costatini, Antonio Forne Tomas and Christoph Lentz. 45th, the Lexus, Fabian Barthez, former goalkeeper, at the wheel in the final part of qualifying. New to the championship, Pampanini, Monaco and Calamia. They are 46th in the Mercedes, and at the foot of the times, a car which has got a problem, I think, because I'm not sure it's been out for Qs 2 nor 3. The Straka Mercedes, David Fuminelli, Dev Gore and Lewis Williamson. That car was being released from Parc Fermé during Q3, so I have a horrible feeling that it's not been out in Q2, Q3 to actually do a time. But let's look at the highlights then, which began with everybody treading carefully out onto the circuit, and early times being offered up by the likes of Dries Van Toor. Stefan Rattel did a tour of the garages, having a word with WRT's Vincent Vos. And as the drivers work their way out of the Virage du Port, up over the curb, good pace being set within Q1 by the Dynamic Motorsport Porsche. Tyres were traded, and as the second element of qualifying got underway, so things became ever more important, with not just lap times but the average now being factored in. There's a car that we now know will start from the pit lane, the 88 Mercedes, after an engine change overnight. A spin for number 9 of Angelique de Tavernier, an experienced driver, but Angelique having a rotation, and that car spinning out of the run through Toulon towards Bendor. Q3 was the deciding element of qualifying, but when it mattered, it was Bentley at the top of the times, and so 1:07 is going to start the 6 hours from pole position. The race getting underway at 6 o'clock. We'll be with you from 5:30 onwards for the full build-up to the race. A chance to hear from drivers on the grid, and then 6 hours of drama, plus the podiums to come. Bentley starts on pole position then here at Paul Ricard for the third round of the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup. And we'll be with you, looking forward to an exciting race later on. For now, from John Watson and David Addison, it's goodbye.